Hello everyone, I'm Elena and this is Applewood Tarot. This is another card comparison video. I'm sure you don't need any introduction at this point, but here I compare various individual tarot cards to see what I get from the different ways their creators chose to depict them. It interests me to look at the nuances and implications of each. Today I'll look at the Chariot. The Chariot is often seen as victory or triumph and strength of will. This suits what I see when I look at Smith-Waite's Chariot. Here is a man who is done with previous conquests and is now ready to move on to the next challenge. It's like an early version of the world, except instead of the journey being fully complete, only the first leg of it is, specifically the worldly leg. If you're familiar with that way of looking at the major arcana as a spiral with patterns repeating every 7 cards, this makes sense. The crown and scepter, as well as the chariot itself, shows that he is very high up in society. He also wears armor, which shows he is a warrior of some sort. Altogether, this implies a conqueror. Behind him is a walled city, which can be seen as peak human civilization. The fact that he's leaving that city behind shows he has gained and moved past those worldly desires, and now craves something more. He has plateaued and reached a moment of stillness in the in-between, the gap that spans from one place or phase to another. Where do you go from here when you've accomplished all that you initially set out to do? I know that momentum or leveling up is another common association of this card, but I can't help but notice how still everything in it is. The chariot isn't moving. The Sphinx are not even harnessed to it. Maybe that's the next thing he needs to learn after reaching this point. That may be why the card that follows, Strength, shows a woman mastering a lion. She knows how to wrangle and direct such powerful creatures. The Chariot from Storyboard Tarot at the top left has very similar imagery to that of the Smith-Waite. It brings the viewer's attention to the essential or core symbols of the card. One key difference is that it shows a horse instead of a sphinx. This changes things a bit. For one, horses are more mundane. They still take a fair amount of skill to master, but are very much of this world. They lack the mysterious and protective associations of the Sphinx, though they retain that of force, power, and movement. The horse is wearing tack, which shows it has been broken. One also can't tell whether the horse is male or female. This may or may not be important, depending on whether it's seen as part of the self. There is a sense that she, the charioteer, has been seen and recognized for her achievements. It may be the stars in the background or the look on her face that gives me that impression. Now she steps out into the wider world with self-awareness. To become self-aware is part of growing up and claiming one's place in society and beyond. The Chariot's number is 7. A 7-year-old child has reached a point where he or she should know how to behave in public. They may be asked what they want to be when they grow up and encouraged to feed or work towards attaining those desires. Add 7. 14 is when we become self-aware in a different way. Everything feels more dramatic. More is expected of you. If you're lucky, more freedom is gained. Add another 7. At 21, most people are seen as adults, with everything that comes along with that. And so on. Heartscape Tarot's Chariot at the bottom left feels like steady progress. It's also the most optimistic of these. We don't know where this person came from or where he's going, but he's headed somewhere bright. There's the river, also in Smith-Waite's card, that's symbolic of a boundary that has been or must be crossed. This may be a psychic or emotional boundary. The hills and mountains may be challenges one must find the way through. As of now, they're still picturesque, not yet colored by difficulties faced. This is the less jaded perspective of young people. I've never been particularly bold, but the more I see of the wider world, the less I want to go out into it. It would be nice to have my old perspective back sometimes. The Chariot is only a third of the way through the major arcana. The more challenging adventures are still around the corner. I love the bicycle as a modern chariot. It aptly expresses the concept of moving forward by one's own power. Not just that of the physical, but also willpower. It's one thing to have the physical capability to take action. It's something else to have the motivation to actually get up and moving towards where you want to be. How many people struggle with achieving their goals, even simple ones like mild exercise fully within their ability to do? They put it off because they lack the will to follow through with it. Everyone has his or her own reasons for not doing a thing, but no matter what, it will always come down to the question of what you are willing to do to go after what you want. In contrast to Heartscape's mellow vibes, the Chariot from Children of Letha at the bottom right is a force of nature. I can feel the ocean in this. There's a surging and churning from the water horses, again horses instead of sphinx, that the charioteer is trying to keep control of. She is doing the work I spoke of just now. She is absolutely capable of wrangling these creatures, but that doesn't mean it's effortless. This is where many people get stuck when trying to obtain what they want. A thing can be doable, but it still needs to be done on some level. It won't spontaneously happen just because you think about it one time. Even manifesting, as an example, which is as simple and doable a method as it gets, that still needs some effort on the part of the person doing it. And that effort must be continuous until the goal is reached. Water needs something steady and constant to keep it contained. There are people who are very bothered whenever the charioteer is depicted using reins. I know that there's a symbolic point in excluding them. I think the idea is that they can drive the chariot with only their will, but I do believe that some outer action must be taken to better affect the material world. For example, how can a person expect to manifest a job for themselves if they never send out a single application? This takes effort. You make the effort to tell the horses where you want them to go, so they do it. Whether or not reins are used to do this seems a moot point. Their being there doesn't suddenly change the entire meaning of the card, so I don't see what the big deal is. At the top right is Unveiling the Golden Age Tarot's Chariot, also called Dimensional Shifts of the Crystalline. This mouthful can be taken in more than one way. The word crystalline can mean clear, as in clear as crystal, or that a thing is like a crystal, an example being how a shiny piece of glass can look like a gemstone. The guidebook emphasizes air and the mental in this card, so I see this title as applying to shifts in mindset and achieved clarity. The deck is very much about inner work and transformation, so this goes along with that theme. The image shows butterflies and dragonflies, symbols of transformation and strength, among other things, that seem to carry or guide geometric shapes from one more realistic Earth up towards another, let's say more spiritual Earth up above. This illustrates the elevation that occurs when one moves past the merely physical world. You move from one loop of the spiral to the next. It's still Earth, but things are a little different. Notice that this is once again an in-between place. It isn't somewhere to pause, but to progress steadily. The shapes grow more complex the higher they go. They become increasingly multifaceted. What do these represent? They may be thoughts, perspective, understanding, beliefs, maybe even a soul's various incarnations. This may be expressing a major step on the soul's overall journey, if you believe in that kind of thing. But even here, the transformation means nothing if it isn't applied to how one lives on Earth as well as beyond it. All of these cards show images that feel deceptively simple. The ideas expressed are also fairly upfront: strength of will, hitting milestones, choosing to step forward into a new way of being. This movement is in both the physical and non-physical. Inner and outer work is called for. Do you step up or fall back? How will you move and progress through the world? That's all for now. Thank you so much for listening to my rambling. I hope that it gave you food for thought and that you go forward with a wider understanding that can be applied to your own cards. I do take suggestions for future videos, so if there are any cards I have that you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Thank you again. See you next time.